Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Consequences by John Quick. This is a self-published book, and I'm going to get back to that in just a moment, but I want to tell you what it's about first. And essentially, it's a slasher movie in book form. You have something horrific that happens back in 1971, and then we jump to the present day where we meet our main cast of characters, and something bad happens with them, and that leads to a killer wanting to take them out. And I'll get into a little more detail. But that's essentially what you have in this story. So it is a self-published book, and I'm usually very nervous when it comes to reading and reviewing something that's been self-published. There is some horrible stuff out there. But I was pleasantly surprised by this book. It does have a bit of a lackluster cover, but this is a perfect example of the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, because what's in between the covers is very entertaining. As I said, it's a slasher movie. Essentially, I'm a huge fan of slasher movies, so it's got that going for it. And it does follow the formula a touch. Like I said, we start in 1971 with something very, very horrible happening, which is akin to, say, Halloween or Friday the 13th. And then we jump to present day. So it's graduation day for our characters. Our main character is Christopher, typical high school student. And then there's Hannah, a girl that Christopher has been friends with almost forever, and he's had a crush on her for almost that long, but he's never done anything about it. We've got his best friend Austin, and then there's Tyler, Jacob, Emily, Alexis, just a nice little group of friends. And after graduation, they're going to go out and party. Their original plans fell through, so they've decided to go to this old haunted cabin in the woods, just to have just the seven of them. They're going to have a nice time, but something goes wrong. Something bad happens, and someone sees it and is not happy about it and decides to exact revenge. One of the differences between this and the typical slasher movie, at least off the top of my head, again, I think of Halloween, I think of Friday the 13th, some of the other ones. And what you have in those movies typically is that the killer hides the bodies. In especially Friday the 13th, the characters don't know that there's a killer for a long, long time. Till almost the very end of the movie. Then the bodies start popping up, and they realize that there's something going on. That is not the case with this story, and I like that. The characters know almost from the get-go that, well, from almost the moment the bad thing happens, they know somebody is after them. And it made me think of the one movie like that came to mind was Nightmare on Elm Street. Very early on, again, they know somebody or something is killing them. Although, I'll come right out and say it, there is nothing supernatural in this story. It's just a straight-up human killer. And that's a little different than a lot of the slasher movies. Again, I always come back to Halloween, Friday the 13th, where you have these unstoppable killers. This is just a guy, and he's not a dumb guy. He's he comes off at times as a little rednecky, for lack of a better term, but he's pretty smart. He's got a plan, and seems like it's working pretty well for him. And our kids aren't typical, or aren't stupid kids either. I think they're very typical high school graduates. You don't have the archetypal slasher movie characters that sort of the movie Cabin in the Woods really played up that the archetypes, but I mean that was sort of the point of the movie, part of the point of the movie anyway. But they're archetypes for a reason, and we don't have the dumb jock, and then the slutty girl, and the dumb blonde, and the pure final girl and the all those typical characters. These are just average kids. Um, but the writing elevates this story. As I said, I'm usually very nervous with self-published work, but this is a very well written story. It avoids a lot of the tropes, the typical tropes of slasher films. Um, I've already mentioned the killer is quite a bit different than your average slasher film. I think the characters are well written. They each have their own distinct personalities, and they play well off of each other. Uh, the uh, John Quick avoids a lot of the cliches. I don't want to go into the detail because I think you need to read this for yourself. Um, but there were quite a few times when I expected something simply because that's the way slasher movies go, and it didn't end up that way, which is, a pleasant surprise. There was one particular scene with Christopher Hannah, and I want to say Alexis, um, that didn't sit right with me at first. It felt a little forced. It felt a little like exploitation. And I actually, there's this scene happens with the three of them, and there's a natural break in the story. So I went and I had a cigarette, and I think I had dinner, and I was thinking about it and how it just didn't sit right, as I said. And then I came back and I started reading, and immediately following this scene, we have a scene with Hannah, and she's thinking back on what just happened, and her contemplations, her reasoning, whatever you want to call it, it kind of fixed what was wrong for me with that scene. Um, the reasons for it happening. I could see it. I understood it now, and it didn't just seem like it was thrown in for the sake of having this particular type of scene in the story. Um, so again, that's to me that just shows the strength of Mr. Quick as a writer, that he could take me from that, really kind of doubting this bit and turning me around, and all right, I understand. I don't have a problem with it anymore. Um, if you want to know what this scene is, you're gonna have to read the book. um, so I don't want to give too much away at all. So this is a violent book. There is some gore. It's not completely over the top. I wouldn't put this in the hardcore horror category by any means. But there is some graphic violence. Um, there are more characters. There are cops involved, uh, and the main investigator is a decent character. And I like the way he interacts with the kids and the way they interact with them. And I like how it's all put together. And these kids seem pretty smart. They don't do those stupid things that you typically see in a slasher movie. It's almost I know a lot of people when they watch horror movies, and especially something like a slasher film, that will just complain about what the characters are doing. And occasionally, if it's really bad, I'll do it too. I like to let it slide because, like I said, I'm a fan of the genre. Um, but a lot of people will second guess the story, and they'll say, well, if that were me, I wouldn't do that, I would do this. um, and I think that Quick bypasses a lot of that. These characters don't do those stupid things. Perfect example, I don't think this is giving anything away. There's a point where they're offered police protection. They're offered a chance to go into protective custody, and they take it. They're not dumb. They're like, hell yeah, we're going to go into protective custody. Someone's trying to kill us. Um, and there are some other things. And again, it almost feels like you're going down that familiar path, and then he kind of zigs and zags and takes you in a slightly different direction, the more intelligent direction for the characters. Um, so Yeah, I think this is, again, very surprised. This is very strong for a self-published work. I have to say, I'm looking forward to seeing what Mr. Quick does next. I think, um, as well written as this is, it's his first novel. There's always room to grow. Even seasoned writers can improve. So I want to see what he does next. I want to see where his career takes him, because this was certainly a really good start. Um, so all of that sort of rambling will lead to my rating, and not the greatest drawings, but I do give Consequences by John Quick. It's gonna be one of those. 4 out of 5 trucker hats. You'll have to read the story to figure out why it's trucker hats. But 4 out of 5. It's a really solid story. It's entertaining. Um, it's well written. Uh, I like the characters. I think you're going to root for these kids. Um, and again, a lot of slasher movies, you're going to have those characters that you want to see get killed because they're assholes or whatever. And I don't think anybody here falls into that category. These are people that we want to survive. Um, I mean, we understand why the killer is doing what he's doing. It might be a little extreme, but at least he has his reasons. Um, and we these kids don't deserve what's happening to them, but it's happening anyway in a very entertaining, horrific way. Um, so that's Consequences by John Quick. Uh, don't worry about that lackluster cover. It's the good story inside that you should concern yourself with. So if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. So if you want to know any more details about the very vague stuff that I talked about, you can ask me in the comments below, and I'll tell you. Just there'll be spoiler warnings. Um, I will have a link for the book in the description below, and I really do think you should check it out. It's very entertaining. So at least an Amazon link for the book down in the description. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I believe that will be all for this episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I have been your host, Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.